So today we're diving into an economic analysis of those steep 2025 U.S. tariff increases.
Right. Specifically, who's really paying the price and what the macroeconomic fallout looks like.
Okay, so let's jump right in. Your analysis makes a really strong case about the negative impacts of these tariffs, but it seems to explicitly omit a pretty major factor.
And that's the core weakness right there. It's that scope limit. The model, and it says this right in the text, doesn't capture the financial drag from, and I'm quoting, heightened investor uncertainty.
Which is a huge variable to leave out.
It is. So acknowledging it is honest, but not integrating it means your estimated damages are, well, they're likely a floor, not the ceiling.
Okay, so why is that so critical? I mean, the GDP losses you've calculated are already pretty significant.
Because the reader needs to understand the full potential risk of the policy. So the suggestion is to integrate this external risk right into the main discussion. It just makes the whole argument more robust.
So what does that look like in practice?
Well, for example, you could add a sensitivity discussion. You already have that documented decline in U.S. real investment, that negative 6.8% figure in the no retaliation case.
Right.
You could use that as a baseline, and then just explain that investor flight could make that number much, much worse.
Or just state it more directly.
Exactly. Just clearly state that the calculated GDP loss, that average of negative 1.5%, should be treated as a conservative floor of potential damage.
This is where the paper needs to hit a lot harder. The most compelling finding that these tariffs basically act as a highly regressive tax. It's sort of buried in the analysis.
And the numbers are they're incredible.
They are. The bottom quintile loses almost 9% of their after-tax income, while the top 1% actually gains nearly 12%.
Wow.
I mean, that's not just an economic data point, That's a huge statement on fairness that you really need to maximize.
That contrast is the story. So the suggestion is to elevate that discussion. You should frame these tariffs right up front as the largest tax increase on American consumers in a generation. Exactly. And to do that, you could start the economic impact section by highlighting that $1,700 annual tax increase for an average household.
Lead with that number.
Lead with that. Then use that comparison, the bottom 80% losing versus the top 1% gaining, to explain why consumption falls. It's much more visceral than just saying tariffs cause distortions.
And speaking of consumption, that brings us to the third point. The difference in outcomes between your no retaliation and retaliation scenarios is massive, but the reason why is a bit too buried in the technical details.
That's right. The material correctly shows that the U.S. initially gets a terms of trade gain. It's about a 6.7% boost in the no retaliation case. And that gain is the only thing propping up consumption.
But then retaliation hits.
And it completely reverses. That gain becomes a negative 1.7% loss, and consumption just tanks with it. That technical detail needs to be the headline. It's the crucial variable.
So you're saying we should clearly isolate the terms of trade effect as the main swing factor.
Yes. You have to make it clear that this is what determines whether U.S. consumption rises or falls, regardless of the other GDP issues. It makes the foreign policy response the central drama for consumers.
Okay, so how do you show that?
Just use a dramatic side-by-side comparison. Show that real consumption averages a small gain, plus 0.38%, when the terms of trade improve. But then it averages a definite loss, negative 1.1%, when retaliation completely wipes that gain out. That contrast makes the whole point for you.
Okay, so to sum up, 3 big ways to strengthen this analysis. First, incorporate the risk of investor uncertainty and frame it as a damage floor.
Second, elevate that potent distributional data. Lead with the human cost.
Right.
And third, explicitly clarify how those terms of trade dynamics are the critical swing factor for everyday consumption.
Exactly.
These are sharp, focused opportunities that really build on the excellent technical work you've already done. We highly encourage you to refine these sections, and please submit your revised material back to us for another critique when you're ready.